everybody to today's SafetyChain Software Food Safety and Quality Assurance Leadership Series for 2013. Our topic today is You Audit Ready Every Day with special guest speaker Debby Newslow, President of Newslow Associates. Now, before I introduce Debby and our agenda, I wanted to give you a few housekeeping announcements. Today, we're hosted by WebEx. If you require any technical support during the call, you can call WebEx Technical Support directly at 1-866-29-3239. And again, that's 1-866-29-3239. We're going to take all of your questions at the end of the presentations, and we're going to leave plenty of time for those questions. And if we have a lot of them, we'll stay on a few minutes to make sure we get to as many of them as they can. Now, you can wait until we go into the Q&A to enter your questions. But if you think of something now and you want to make sure that you get it down, if you go to the top of your screen, a little toolbar will drop down. The red arrow pointing down on the side. If you click that arrow, you'll see a question and answer box, and you can enter your questions, and we'll have them waiting for us. Or you can wait until we come out of full screen after the presentations and enter it then. But everybody will have a chance to submit their questions. The slides and recording will be available to everybody who's registered for the event. We'll tell you how to get those at the end of the event, but they will be emailed to you. So I know a lot of you asked about that. I'm getting a couple of chats from folks asking, one's on. We actually have literally hundreds of people registered for this event today. We've got a very large crowd on with us. For privacy reasons, if you're not in full screen, you'll only be able to see the names of our speakers and our producers and your name. You'll not be able to see the names of the attendees. If you're having difficulty with the audio coming out of the speakers, you always do have the option of calling in on the number that was provided to you on your confirmation email. So with that, let's get into our presentation. I'm going to introduce Debby in a few minutes. I'm Barbara Levin. I'm the SVP of Marketing and a co-founder of SafetyChain Software, and I'm very excited to introduce you to Debby and to today's presentations. You know, when I thought about this webinar today, SafetyChain, we are a food safety and quality technology company, and we speak to customers all the time about being audit ready and all of the pain that they feel in trying to prepare for audits. And the stuff that we talk about really do have to do with the automation. Everybody doing what they're supposed to do. How are you getting the documentation of all of those tasks? How are you sending and receiving information upstream and downstream that you need for audit readiness? How easy is that information to access? How easy can you present it to the people that are auditing you? And it's all about tools to execute. I was in Philadelphia at the Food Safety Tech Supply Chain Vulnerabilities Conference. I always have trouble saying that. A few months ago, I heard Debby speak. And I fought my way through the crowd because after she was finished, everybody was trying to get to her to answer questions. And, it's obviously for every one of you folks that are on the phone is that if we're going to talk about audit readiness, part of the conversation, and we will get to this, on our agenda is how can I use technology to help me execute audits. But technology can only help you execute on the programs that you have in place. So having a robust, formalized audit readiness program, understanding the various implications of audits and the challenges that go along with them, and what are you doing internally within FSQA groups to prepare for audits, is such a key part of any audit discussion that I'm very, very excited to have Debby start off today with that conversation. So here's our agenda today. Debby is going to speak to us about the categories and the key types of audits and the challenges that we hear from her many clients, from our customers, in getting ready for these types of audits. She's going to talk a little bit, as much as any of us know, about some of the audit challenges that we see coming up with FSMA. She's going to talk about best practices for audit preparation and for past audits with flying colors, including a food safety management system, and it's important in this process. And by food safety management system, she's not talking about technology system, but again, your program. Is really going to talk about internal audits as an important tool for external audit readiness. And when Debby's finished, I'm going to come back, and then I'll get back to just a short discussion about how food safety chain management technology, these emerging innovations, can help you execute on all of those processes and practices so that you can be audit ready every day. And with that, we definitely will then take your questions and tell you how you can get more information. So with that, I'm so excited to introduce Debby. Debby is very, very well known in the field. And Debby, if you could start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and then go into your topics, we're all excited to hear you. So welcome.
Thank you, Barbara. I'd like to welcome everybody to our session. When I talk about my experience, I kind of get tongue-tied because I feel like I have about 300 years of experience in doing this type of thing, auditing and quality system development, training, auditing, consulting. When I'm not consulting and training, I'm actually doing third-party audits. So kind of at it from both sides of the fence. Background, our company has been in business since 1997, but prior to that, it was years and years in different aspects and different food groups, auditing to various, setting up ISO systems and GMP systems and so forth. So it's been a pleasure. Food, I do a lot of things outside of food, like chemical and packaging and anything really based in science, but, food has always been our first love. So you can go to our website and see a whole lot more about all of our groups. We basically have a group of subcontractors, and we assist people based on our experience. Control of the thing.
If you just click anywhere on your screen and page down, then you should be able to get to your next slide.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's start with the definition of what an audit is. Evaluation to determine whether activities and results comply with defined requirements and whether these requirements are implemented effectively and are suitable to achieve objectives. Keywords here are activities and results comply with defined requirements. These defined requirements are going to be based on the type of audit you're having, whether it's FSMA or FDA comes in or a supplier comes in or a customer. So you have the audit is based on confirming that you're following the defined requirements of either standard or your own system or customers or regulatory, and that these requirements are implemented effectively and are suitable to your system. The word effectively has become a word that we probably use in just about every breath. We have to, what we do, we need to be sure we do as we define we do it and make sure we do it effectively. That's the key. Of audits can range from all kinds of different things in today's world. Internal auditing is at the top of the list because I personally feel, based on experience, that if you have a robust, effective audit program, it's going to get you ready for anybody that could come knocking at your door. A third-party audit is more from a registrar. It's independent. We have GMP and sanitation in there because there's still some third-party audits that focus on GMP compliance, like ASI or AIB, Silica. A lot of people will come in and just give you a third-party GMP. Second party is supplier customer. Regulatory would fall under probably third party, and they have third party versus second party versus internal auditing. This month is an interesting it's interesting where FSMA is, where I'm not sure exactly we know, but I think we're getting closer to know. And in reviewing that information, it looks like they are going to accept third-party audits. They're going to have training, and they're going to have certain criteria, I believe. So as we look at these audits, we're going to be ready for that also, depending on the criteria. Again, it'll be a defined criteria that we'll have, and that's what we'll make sure that we adhere to. Audit classifications, I talked a little bit just now about that. Internal auditing, again, internal auditing is really performed internal, just like it said. You have an internal audit group that's usually made up of your associates that are trained, and they actually perform the audits. GP audits could be considered internal auditing, where you have trained folks in that, in GMP compliance, and they're auditing them. So typically, internal auditing is performed within the organization to measure your own performance, strengths, and weaknesses against its own established procedures and system. Internal audit is a fact-finding exercise, not fault-finding, looking at weaknesses that you look at it as a continuous improvement, opportunities to get better, because you're going to find weaknesses and you're going to be able to address them. You're not going to wait for FDA or a customer or a supplier to come in and find your weaknesses. We don't believe at all in auditing for compliance. Auditing for compliance means that, well, when we're audited, they'll tell us everything we have wrong, and then we'll fix it. We need to be proactive. People need to take responsibility, understand the requirements, do the very best they can to comply with it, and then the internal audit comes in as an independent set of eyes that finds the things that others don't see because they're just too close to it. A second-party audit is performed by a company representative, or it could be someone else that has an outside interest in the company, such as a customer or a supplier. Sometimes we're hired to take a customer, take a large company's modules and take their information that they want to audit against and go into a supplier or a customer and audit to their module. So that would be second party. Third party or external audits performed by a totally independent source. When you're registration audits, you hire a registrar to come in with a particular standard, and they evaluate you. You have no vested interest. You're independent, and you're against the standard. So that's really where we are in today's world now, heading really strong towards independent audits. Companies use these standards for their own system. They build their own system around it, which is good, but it doesn't have the independence in it, where, sometimes in some of my past lives, you'd go in to audit something representing the company you work for, and, you might find something, and someone might say, well, we're not going to count that because we can't afford it. So you can't do that with third-party audit. You have your requirements. You either meet the requirements or you don't, and that's it. Types of audits, they all have their own pros and cons. Some audits reflect the full audit, such as the registrar does, or sometimes internal audits or system audits. It's really the largest, most extensive audit. It's performed to verify that the whole system, you look at it from start to finish and every aspect of it. A process audit is concentration on one or more specific process areas, varying conformance to standard or method or procedure. So systems are made up of a lot of different processes. So with a process audit, you're taking a piece of a system and doing that piece. A product audit, in the old days, we used to do product audits from start to finish. But a product audit really is a final product or service and conform that's fit for use. Products are not as frequent as they are in the past. Now in troubleshooting or tracking a new product. Regulatory, may come in and look at a product and they may fall in this category where they're going to look at a particular product and follow it from start to stop, depending on if they've had any issues or reported issues. That's kind of where that is, but we did have something that we talked about a little bit on the challenges of these. A system audit is really huge. It takes a lot of time. Some companies will want to, if they're compliant to a particular system, they'll be audited. They'll audit themselves, or they'll have someone audit themselves as internal as once a year. And sometimes, even the supplier audit or customer audit, they'll come in once a year or every 3 years or something like that, and they'll audit the complete system, randomly picking samples, randomly picking procedures. That's with external audits, but internally, definitely do not recommend once-a-year audits, and we'll tell you why in a little bit. A process audit is more frequent, and I get sometimes a lot of questions on process auditing because I've encouraged that people do more audits, less with a small scope, more frequently. Now, people will look at you and say, well, we're already doing audits twice a year. How can we do any more? Well, the beauty of a structured, effective process audit program is that you do smaller pieces more frequently. And in doing that, the auditors get more are to practice. They feel more confident in their skills. Auditees especially become more confident because the audits become a way of life. It's not a once-a-year check on you. So this really helps you because they're more confident when audits come. So if an outside auditor comes, they're not, helter-skelter, or they're not, real nervous. Plus, you find you are able to maybe look at and address weaknesses different. You may have smaller numbers of findings and weaknesses that are easier to address than in a system audit. You do it once a year, you could end up with 50 or 60, and then that just overburdens everything. Where a process audit, you're looking at individual pieces of it. The process audit, which is more frequent, you can follow up on previous audits, or if you do something and you have a trail that you feel that you don't have time to follow up with now, they can do it the next time. You don't have to wait a year to do it. Audit has its place in certain situations, but if you're just focusing on a single product, that's good for the audit of the product, but it might kind of give you what we call tunnel vision, because you could miss other related things that could be going on in different areas, but you're looking at the product, not the whole process. So really, effective program can be a combination, but a strong focus on a process audit. Areas should be audited. A lot of times we get asked, what do we need to really focus on? If you're going for a management system standard, you have to audit all the elements. And some companies will start out auditing elements of a standard. Now, the elements would be maybe like document control. It would be inspection and testing, record control, communication, management review. Those are kind of like elements. And you have specifically focused elements. But also process areas. When you go into a process area such as, say, you're in the packaging department and do a process audit, you're really looking at many of the elements there. You look at documents, do they have the documents they need? Are they in control? What records do they keep? You get the training requirements in that process. But really overlaps into a lot of the elements. Prerequisite programs, or PRPs, those need to be audited and confirmed effective. So you may include those in your audit program or have a separate, I always like to have everything together in an audit program, and then you can divvy it out based on training and scheduling. But you audit your prerequisite programs, and you need to confirm that they're effective. Program, for those of you, I think probably are pretty much all of us kind of live and breathe them. But those are the programs that really support your food safety system. They help manage hazards so that you don't have to have critical control points, or you don't need a critical control point to control a hazard. Customer requirements, regulatory requirements. What are these, and are you compliant? Remember the first definition of what an audit is, that you're measuring compliance to defined requirements. So do we know what we have to do, and in doing that, do we have proof that we're doing it? Follow on corrective actions for effectiveness. Corrective actions would be a finding or something else that's going on in the system. They don't need to come from only audits. But once you address and fix something, fix a corrective action, we always need to go back, was it effective? I now, who's really retired now, which he made the comment that an effective corrective and preventive action process is the to-do list that won't go away. And the reason for that is the fact that if you find something, you continually go back and see, is it effective until you're sure that you've got all the pieces. Because many times when something's wrong, you go after the first thing and you fix it. And it looks like it's fixed, so, well, I'm done, you move on. Then it comes back. So it kind of gives you enough time to look at it. Also look at the risk. Everything in today's world is about the potential risk. What are the risks of certain areas and what are we doing? You could even do an audit, for instance, there's a recall or something going on with another company in your own food sector. So you're going to go back and say, gee, let's see if we could fall into that. What are we doing so we're sure that we have any potential risks in control. Audit readiness, best practices. In the old days with GMPs and stuff like that, and you pretty much, you know when you may know or you may not know when you get it, but most of the time you know. So it's kind of like having your in-laws or somebody coming to visit you, so you clean up the house, or have company, so you want to clean up the house. Where with a system audit and with doing audits frequently, you get used to it and you don't clean up the house. You just confirm that everything is in place and you're looking at records and things like that. System focus really isn't designed for getting ready anyways, because when you do a system audit, you're going back and looking at records and and different proof. So now you could paint the wall, but really looking to see for that you'd look at the history of preventive maintenance and see, is it really, do they just paint it once a year in the audit, or do they have a program to monitor that? So again, that keeps everybody, kind of in tune and practicing. You really want to make sure effective system that's really on demand, but it really becomes a way of life. People that have been certified for a while, they kind of laugh, when they first had structured systems. Or in the old days of GMPs, here comes an audit, everything has to stop and ready. And now a lot of them just say, well, they're coming, we're ready. I mean, what are you going to look at? We're going to look at a sample and we're ready, so come on. A structured system is by management commitment. Management commitment really should probably be on every slide, because with management commitment, you're not going to, and commitment means that management is involved, they're providing the resources. You could dream all day long about having an effective internal audit program and doing process audits and getting everything done on time. But if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the time, or you have top management that says, well, we can't do it today because something else is more important, that will really shoot yourself in the foot. Management commitment, is really the basis for everything we're talking about. So really understanding what resources are needed and making sure that the system is doing what it's supposed to. Having internal audits will build confidence, is what I said to earlier, confidence of both the auditors and the auditees. System that it's understood and more effective. Everybody kind of gets used to it. It's kind of like anything you do, practice, practice, practice. If you don't practice, whether you're a baseball player or a concert pianist or we're trying to get ready for audits, we got confident and be comfortable with the whole audit protocol. Our management system is supported by records, so it's not a recent paint job. Again, if you're looking at something like we might go by, in the old days, we might go to see if gaskets had been changed and take them apart. But now we look at the records. How often are gaskets supposed to be changed, and what is the process for it, and who's trained to do it? And they show us in the preventive maintenance program that it's done over the last, whatever frequency it's supposed to be. So that's very important. People will start to believe in the system because they'll become more confident. A lot of times people will look at you when you're talking about developing a system like we're talking about, and they will say, well, we don't have time, or, so what? We don't want to get involved. But once they start doing it, they, really some of the people that are least involved in the beginning become most involved. So the process is only as effective as the weakest link. And the thing I really want to emphasize is that audit program effectiveness is directly related to the level of management commitment. If you have managers out there telling auditors, well, don't tell them anything because if you do, I'll get fired, or tell them anything, we'll get in trouble, or if you screw up, you're going to you'll be fired. Then that's not fun. You want to have fun. Audit is not fault finding. It's fact finding. 99 times out of 100, and probably even more than that, When you look at something that's a weakness or something that is not compliant, it is not a personal, not somebody, just a personal thing or event. It's really what you've defined or not having something defined. But resources are critical. I mean, resources are making sure that you have the resources that you need. So about successful internal audits. Top management must support the program. I pretty much said most of this already, but encourage ownership for compliance. The department responsibilities, the area responsibility folks should understand what it takes to be compliant and do the very best they can to be compliant, and then welcome an audit that will come in and be independent set of eyes and say, you know, what else do we need to do, or what have we missed, or something like that. Ensure available resources. One thing that I emphasize, and it may even be on another slide, but is having, when you do an audit, you have an auditor, you have someone from the area go with them as a guide. That guide knows the system. They know it, and they can answer a lot of questions the auditor has, because remember, a good audit program, the auditor is independent. So they're looking at it, and they may have some questions like, why is this like this, and or where do I go for that? And the guide can help in answering those questions. Plus, if there is an issue found, the guide saw it firsthand, and it helps fix it. You know, if we write something like there's a hole in the wall in the northwest quarter, you know, they might go, well, we patched a hole, we just missed that one. You may not even know the northwest corner. But you really need a guide, and if you don't have a guide, you never do the audit. If you don't have a representative, a lot of times managers will say to us, well, here, go to them, you know, I'm in my office, if you need me, come find me. So then the auditor will probably write War and Peace and write all kinds of things because nobody's there to explain to them what it's like, and the manager says, well, this is stupid, I'm going to do this. So it just becomes just running in circles, not effective, not getting you ready for outside auditors, because you certainly don't want to be doing that kind of stuff when you have a customer or supplier or regulatory comes in. So that's important. I had one company tell me that they understand the need for a guide, but they just didn't plan for it. So we use a guide. So a lot more time if you don't have a guide, trust me. Not to do the audit, but to write it up and also to address findings. Audit training and education. Having representatives from each department on the audit team, that's very effective, because whatever they learn on the audit, they can go back and share in their own group. And we do a slide later on in training the auditee, so the auditee understands what they're responsible for, because, you know, it's nervous. It's hard to be an auditee. You know, sometimes you get very nervous. Scheduling. Having a schedule, it's very important to plan the audits. Now, the schedule needs to be flexible based on any issues that could come up. But, you know, you have a 12-month schedule, then you can have small scope. You say we're going to get this audit done within a certain quarter. You don't want to box yourself in and say, you know, on September 15th, I'm going to do this audit, because who knows what's going to happen on September 15th. But you certainly can say that we're going to do this audit in third quarter. And then the audit team gets with the auditees and they plan it. Again, effectiveness and practice. So when they have an outside audit, they understand. And frequency, again, is based on the potential risk. The audit, I mentioned the guide. No guide, no audit, and no exception. I think I actually wrote an article, and I think it might be on our website, that actually took some scenarios. Like, it took 3 scenarios and said, okay, here's what the auditor saw and did. Here's the outcome if they had a guide, and here's the outcome if they didn't have a guide. It was interesting. It was real fun to write, too, trust me. So the audit, you want to plan and perform it effectively. Auditor and the auditee is a team, independent set of eyes. The auditor is not out to get the auditee. The auditee needs to understand that, the auditor is there to help, honest. It's not like IRS. This is effective audit programs to make your system better. They really are there to help. I don't know if IRS is on. But anyways, the auditor and the auditee are the team, and they're independent set of eyes. And then you practice. The more you do the audits, the more you're audited, the more you find these weaknesses and fix them, the better prepared you're going to be for anything that comes through the door. And it is a fact. I mean, it doesn't matter who's coming to audit you. You're ready. I mean, you're confident in your system. Doesn't mean they're not going to find something. Different eyes see different things, different situations. An audit's a snapshot in time. But you have the system, you have the foundation, you have the folks that are prepared, ready and confident, understand what's going on. Timeliness, findings are opportunities for improvement. Management must take ownership for compliance. Don't really need to go through every single bullet, but don't ignore and don't Band-Aid fixes. You know, if you're evaluating suppliers and you find one or two suppliers that don't have specs, you know, yes, you have to obviously get them the current spec, but you also have to look at the big picture. If you have two suppliers that don't have current specs and, you know, 300 suppliers, someone needs to see, well, do we have others? And that is the big picture of looking at the findings and following up and continuous improvement. Review objective evidence and records. If you don't have records, then you did not do it. I don't care how convincing you are. If you have records, then you did not do it. And, you know, a record is proof that you did what you said you did. Follow up to make sure that the audit or the findings or addressing the findings or whatever was found was effective. You know, follow up to audit findings is the most frequently identified weakest link because it's very tempting to just Band-Aid it or fix it. We have you found two suppliers that don't have specs. Well, we just contacted them, and now they have the specs. We're done. No, you're done. You need to go back and get, you know, whoever's responsible for that. If I'm responsible for suppliers and looks at 2 out of 10 of my suppliers and finds that, you know, 2 of them don't have the current specs, then that's going to trigger something. I'm going to say, yeah, let's get a project going and let's contact or do whatever we need to do so we're confident that we're meeting our requirement. I mean, you know, suppliers having current specs, trust me, can end up in quite an interesting situation. Let's see. So before I turn it over to Barbara, this is a 3-legged stool. Some people use a tripod. I use it for a HACCP program too and talk about prerequisites in the stool. An effective management system or an effective process, whatever you want to call what you have, really depends on the strength of having a very effective and structured internal audit. You have management review. We're not talking about that today. There's not enough time. But management review, as far as the standards occur, even without the standards, top management gets together and finds out, do we have the resources? Are we effective? What's going on? CAR is corrective action request or preventive action request. You've got to have an effective place to put the findings. So you identify it. If you need a root cause, you identify the root cause, and then you go after it and you fix it in a timely manner based on the potential risk. The best way to be audit ready is to have a system defined, maintained, and effective, confirmed effective. Spend the time and effort to create the compliance system and create correct pace so it's sustainable. You don't want to just throw it together. People that will call me up today and say they don't want to be audited and passed by March 15th is, you know, first of all, I don't know if that's possible, but if it was, trust me, you wouldn't have much of a sustainable system because you want something that's going to last. It's kind of like building a house. You can have a place to live. You can put it outside, up in probably a couple hours, won't last very long. You can build a house and save maybe 6 months on the house building time. You want to make it with balsam wood and throw it together. Or you could take some time and do it correctly, and at the end, it might take a little longer, but when you're done, you have something that isn't going to require constant attention. That constant attention is what really kind of tears down your system and your effectiveness. So be ready. I mean, build confidence. Then the audits do not present the level of stress as when an audit appears and, oops, we just had more time. If we just had time, we could have been ready. Or why did you tell us you were coming? Make sure records are correct. Make sure that when people complete their records, they complete their records correctly. And them. Be sure the training is done. Be sure that folks train and that they know their job. That you don't wait until you know, something goes wrong and said, well, I guess we probably should have trained them on how to do that, so they knew how to ship the right product to the right place. It is more effective to do it correctly long term. Provide the resources appropriate and affordable for the organization. Too quickly will not sustain. Well, you can do it quickly, maybe if you bring in the National Guard or you have a whole bunch of people doing it, but it's still hard to sustain it because then it's someone else's system. You want people to really build something that they believe in, they understand, and they're confident in. So no matter who comes in, FDA, USDA, whoever comes in, they're comfortable with it. Governments must understand and take ownership for compliance. So, but now that I've said all that, take advantage of technology that support the audit readiness. technology in some of these elements, whether it's document control, whether it's in managing your audit process, scheduling it, being able to some of these programs now, you can do an audit, you can go back and with one touch of the finger you can figure out where some of the issues are and how you can put your resources to them and address it in a positive manner, not to find fault. A good example, and I'm kind of dating myself, and I say 15 years, but it was probably a lot longer than that. But, I mean, it's been going on for a while. But a good example is that 15 years ago when we did mock recalls, recalls pretty important. You don't want to wait until you have an emergency to find out that you don't know where your product went. So 15 years ago when we would do audits, we would go into a facility and probably the first day or pretty close to the first day, we'd give them some codes and different things and say, we want a mock recall. And we're happy if we got the information in 48 hours for the request. It's neat because in today's world of technology, you can get it in like 48 minutes or less. I mean, it's amazing. And people laugh at me when I think, well, it take 2 or 3 days. That's youth. But the thing to do in getting ready or not being ready or the readiness for an audit is to not be prepared. And the only way you're going to be prepared is if you make it a way of life and everybody gets used to it. This is just the way we are. So be prepared. And no matter how you define your system and no matter who's leading the charge, things like practice. And practice is together and practicing, doing audits, addressing, understanding compliance, and things such as that. I think, Barbara, that I probably overstepped my welcome, but...
Absolutely not. Thank you so much. And we're going to come back in a few minutes and give everybody the opportunity to speak with Debbie. But I wanted to sort of circle back now and look at how technology can help. I thought that was a pretty interesting suggestion. I'm going to assume that most of you can't bring in the National Guard, and Debbie's emphasized throughout that to audit ready and to do audits right, that you really need to have the resources that you have for them. And depending on the size of your company and the nature of your business, and you can have 1 and 2 and 3 or more audits per month. You can have regulatory audits. You can have customer audits. You can have third-party audits and your own internal audits. So in terms of having resources, it's really important to start to look at technology as a tool. And food safety chain management technology is one of those tools that can help you execute on all of the various audit preparedness and audit best practices that Debbie has been speaking about. So very quickly, I'm going to give you the high-level cliff notes of this food safety chain management. And food safety chain management is really designed to help you ensure compliance, food and safety compliance, at all points upstream and downstream in the food chain. So how does this do this? All information that you need for FSQA, all of your test results, all of the information that you need to get from suppliers, all standard operating procedures, anything that you need to get or do, is automatically entered into the system. It's all accessed centrally and it's accessed electronically. People can enter information from machinery. They can enter information. Suppliers can enter information through portals. And basically, it makes sure that all the right tests are being performed and all the right things are being done. It captures and analyzes all of your data in real time against your specifications. If something is correct, it'll do a COA, and that ingredient or product can go to the next point of chain. If something isn't right, it'll issue instant alerts of non-compliant results. Now, non-compliant result doesn't have to be, a microbiological test. It can be that for audit purposes, you're supposed to review standard operating procedures at a set frequency. You're supposed to get documents from your suppliers at a set frequency. It's going to make sure that you have all of the information. It's going to analyze it in real time. It's going to send out alerts when something's wrong. Perhaps there is a safety issue on a plant floor and corrective action is required. And then all of that information, all of the information that comes in from suppliers, every standard operating procedure, every practice, anything that's being done to ensure safety and quality comes into the systems, it's analyzed. And all of this is available in a central repository of data that helps you not only make performance improvements, but it gives you visibility so that you've got that information to analyze and report on, and of course, to be audit ready. So that's, just the highest level explanation, kind of how it works. So what does this do? How does this make you audit ready every day? Well, of your regulatory third party and your customer audit criteria, supporting documents for programs, standard operating procedures, prerequisite programs, hazard analysis documentation, customer specifications, regulatory specifications. They're all in the system. They're all configured into the system, along with all of your results. So you're going to have an electronic cross-reference of current and historical data that proves that you did what you said you were going to do, and you've got all of those supporting forms and records. It did have program deficiency that's documented along with directive or preventative action, along with the completion time. You can even have digital, electronic, before and after pictures of direct observation deficiencies and their corrective actions. And these files are 21 CFR Part 11 compliant with unalterable time and date stamps, electronic signatures, so that you're really enhancing your efficacy. How does this give you audit on demand? Let's look at today and what this can look like with automation. Making sure that key tasks are completed, standard operating procedures that are part of being audit ready. It's a manual process. Somebody has to remember to do it. Somebody has to remind somebody to remember to do it. With SafetyChain management, all of those tasks, standard operating procedure verification reviews, facility audits, master cleaning schedules, this list is really unlimited. All those scheduled, and with automatic text and email notifications when they need to be done and if they haven't been done. Today it's paper everywhere, getting ready for an audit. We speak to people all the time. Where things just break down. There's paper everywhere. It's in binders. It's in file cabinets. It's in people's drawers. Not even all in the same building. And, even if you've got a lot of this in systems, Dan Bernkoff, our VP of Food Safety and Quality Assurance Applications, I thought said something really profound yesterday. He said, just because something is electronic doesn't mean it's automated. So just because you might have a lot of this documentation in different documentation systems, and it doesn't mean those systems talk to each other. It doesn't mean it's very easy to access it and put it all together in the format that you need for the various types of audits that described. With chain management, you've got an electronic centralized repository of all FSQA and audit data. It can be immediately accessed. It can be automatically formatted to have the documents that you need for different types of audits, because not all audits require the same information. And it's there and it's on demand. Trying to supply and vendor compliance, that's one of the biggest problems with it is, I've gone through all that paper. Can I get my hands on it? Did I get it? Did I get my suppliers, audit verification? Again, we automate vendor compliance. And email and text alerts can go out in advance of expired documents so that you make sure that you have what you need when you need it. What all of this does to make you audit ready on demand is anywhere, at any time, with any internet connection, and you can perform that audit on an iPad, on a tablet. A customer comes to you, you need your call to a customer. You don't have to spend days and days and days, and many times, as we all know, you don't have days. They say, be here tomorrow. You put your iPad, all of the information, every test result, every operating procedure, everything that you've done for safety and quality assurance to meet regulatory third-party and customer specifications. There's automatic reminders. All the safety and quality data is being analyzed and flagged, allowing corrective actions before something bad comes in and something bad goes out. So information, again, is just available on demand. And Debbie, I will challenge you to say the thing, it can be 40 seconds and 48 minutes. So this kind of technology, is really allowing people to respond to the audits, to be audit ready without having all of the breakdowns, all of the scrambling that it takes. And by being audit ready, you're also creating those efficiencies that are assuring your compliance, because it's catching safety and quality data as it comes in. It's flagging things that are out of compliance. So there's one way and a tool. It's a resource that you have that provides $100 ROI. And so to start to think of one of your partners in being audit ready as being a technology tool. And with that, we're going to take your questions. I'm going to give you some information. First thing that we're going to do right now is take you out of full screen. That you can start to go to the right-hand side and enter your questions in the lower right-hand side and then hit send. And while those are queuing up, I'll give you a little bit of information. First of all, Debbie is a very, very busy person, as you can see. As a matter of fact, I know that she is at a site now giving a client training and workshop. These are a few of the upcoming workshops that she does. And you can go to her website at newslow.com, NEWSLOW, and you can get information and register for any of these workshops. If I isn't recorded, you'll get an email within the next 24 hours that will let you immediately download the slides and the recording from today. It'll also give you the opportunity to ask for pricing, to ask for an in-depth demonstration so that you can see how the solution can have you audit ready on demand. We've got some fabulous webinars coming up. Dr. David Atchison, who is probably the industry expert when it comes to FSMA, will be speaking about the new proposed rules and what you need to know and do now. We're going to have a live demo of the SafetyChain for Food Solutions February 27th. We're very excited to have one of our customers, Fresh Vegetables, Nia Hardy, speak about their fresh approach to food safety initiatives. You can go to our website and register for any or all of those complimentary webinars. So with that, let's get to some of these many, many questions we have here. Patricia asking, Debbie, when you say that you need to do follow-up after your internal audit, who's responsible for follow-up?
Well, you're going to define your procedure. Follow-up, it depends on what you're following up on. If you're in the area being audited, for the responsibility of the area being audited, need their own follow-up to make sure that they're, compliant. For instance, if they find something, or if they say they have to train someone, then they're going to make sure it's effective. And then, if you find a finding and you write it up as a corrective action, then that would once whoever is responsible for the corrective action done the root cause and said they fixed it. They said we fixed it. It's fixed. Then someone would follow up outside of that. Maybe an auditor or whoever or someone else that's trained would follow up and get enough of a sample size to make sure it's effective. It's kind of like the roof leaks. We patched the roof. We're done. No, you're not done. You have to wait and make sure that you get enough opportunity to see if it's going to leak, if it's effective. same way, if forms are not completed correctly, then you need enough of a sample size and enough of a time lapse to make sure that's actually fixed. So it really depends on what you're following up on, but when we really say a follow-up audit, maybe if, like let's say you have an external audit, and then you actually assign, an audit team to go and, up and see, the status of certain areas. Again, it's based on the findings of potential risks and the criticalness of it. So, if you find out that if you have an outside audit and it looks like your document control system is not what it thought it was, and you kind of try to do some things to fix it, then you may have a follow-up audit of that element or that process just to see the status of it. But that answers the question.
I think it does. Excuse me. I have a question from Joanne. In earlier slides, you mentioned unannounced audits. Is this a trend that you see that's going to continue to grow?
No, I don't know. One of the food safety standards actually now allows for unannounced audits, and people choose that because they think it's telling their customer, well, we're ready anytime, just come anytime. But I think we're almost kind of getting away from unannounced audits only because we're getting more into the system approach. And it really doesn't matter if it's announced or it's unannounced. You either have the records and you have the substantiated data. You're either managing the system effectively or not, and you're looking at it. So, if you're having an audit next week, all of a sudden you have an audit, and you haven't done your management review for the last year, doing a management review isn't going to help you. When you have your audit, we look at how frequently you're supposed to have them and have records to show it. Same way with forms and same way with maintenance. We look at history and data. So there's still some interest in unannounced audits. In the old days when it was basically GMP, sanitation, unannounced was a lot more, people would show up because they think they would see what it's really like. Again, it's kind of like your mother coming to visit you without telling you, and there's dirty dishes in the sink. She's coming, there's not dirty dishes in the sink. That kind of thing. So I don't know. I think it depends. I would not. I got
a question from, I know I'm not going to pronounce this name correctly. I'll say Zulkar, asking, can you define cars and three-legged stool? So yes, that's corrective and preventive actions, correct?
Yes, corrective. It's CAR really kind of corrective action request is what a lot of people say, and then PAR is preventive action request. The food safety standards and management standards require you to have a corrective and prevent action process where you identify the findings, anything that's a weakness in the system, a nonconformance, and you do a corrective action to address the finding, identify the root cause. Also, for instance, GMPs, you probably wouldn't do a corrective action if one time the brooms weren't on the floor. But if you start seeing a trend and the brooms are always on the floor, then you might want to do a root cause analysis and see, well, how the brooms are on the floor? Is what we need to do. Is it?
Sure.
So that's really in the processes. ISO 9001, Section 8, they go pretty good into some of the background into what's required in an effective program. But there's a lot there now about corrective actions and, an effective way to make it work for you without making a nightmare. Because if you can be a nightmare real quick if you're not careful how you apply it.
I see a question from Tara to me, Ken. The system is great with an SAP system, and absolutely, we have SAP customers. The SafetyChain for food solution is very, very modular, and it's a suite of components, including supplier compliance and COA management, HACCP data reporting, quality and safety data reporting, GFSI compliance, finished customer testing. It's very modular, and we understand that people have the technology in place. So we can send information to and from just about any system. It's a complement to a supply chain management system. So yes, we can and do work with many of your existing technologies. We have Dan on in case I needed to, excuse me, answer some questions with me if we needed him in the SafetyChain's FSQA person. Did you see this question from Barb? She's asking, can plant suppliers download specifications and COAs? Can party audits be entered into the system themselves instead of the plant having to load the information in themselves?
Well, that question is yes. It can go directly into our system. It really depends on the plant, the workflow that they wish. Sometimes these programs are uploaded and it wants to verify that the information that they're receiving meets their requirements, not just a document. So they're going to do a observation review. So it can be workflowed either way, directly into our system or through a verification validation process that someone get to look at that particular document.
Right,
that makes sense.
That does. Thank you. Now, Maxine is asking about iPad apps for the software. So the software, depending on how you're using it, you're using it for pre-harvest inspections and you're filling out, safety or quality assessment forms, or if you're taking the whole system on an iPad or other tablet to the customer, for an audit. The information can be downloaded and the dashboard is downloaded for any kind of tablet, whether it's an iPad or some other kind of tablet. It's not an iPad app. It's just that this is a web-based cloud solution that can be accessed from an internet connection. You can look at it on your iPhone or your BlackBerry or your Android. Francisco is asking if you already have a document control software system or LIMS. What would be the limitations of the software to connect? And there are none. Like I said, we work with existing solutions that you do already have. And then let me see. There was Sales asking if there are classes one can take to learn more about the in-depth of the SQF codes for an audit. Debbie, are you doing any workshops in that area? I'm sure that there are.
Yes, we have a affiliation with a group that does these audits, focusing on. Well, we have kind of an overview type where we talk about the food safety standards. But what we want to do is maybe look into SQF awareness and be an SQF audit or surviving an SQF audit and getting ready how to develop the system. We do have a company. We do those classes in Orlando, maybe once or twice a year. I think the one we have coming up, I believe, in February, that we do. We work with Tatiana on.
Tatiana Largo from Ecolab, sure.
Right, and so we run with that together.
Mm-hmm.
So we can
also
definitely.
A group. Yeah. Go ahead.
Definitely, if anybody has questions that are not answered or something like that, you can go to our website and you can do a contact, and we'll get back to you and kind of give you the information. If we don't have something, we can share who we recommend. Can I answer? We had a question about the guide. Can I answer that real quick before I get?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of questions. I'm scrolling down the list. If you want to add that one, go ahead.
We want to know, what is the guide? Is the guide automation, or is it a person? The guide is a representative of the area. So if I'm going to go audit packaging, I might meet with the packaging manager. Now, if I were the packaging manager, I'd go with an audit because I want to see what they see and learn from it. But if he can't, then he would have one of his supervisors or somebody accompany the auditor to the different areas. Now, sometimes the guide and the auditor can be the same. Obviously, if he's auditing the packaging manager, he's the guide. But when you're about in the department and you're auditing operators, or you're looking at different aspects of that particular process, a representative of the area who sees what you see helps them first of all, they can explain a lot of things, hose may be on the floor. Well, they may be doing pee or something. It's just not on the floor all the time.
Right.
But so they can explain that. Or if you do find something like records are not being completed correctly or the automation isn't working, they see like you do. So the auditor isn't assigned the task of trying to write it down and describe it so perfectly. Anybody that wasn't there knows what he's talking about because I was there, and they can address it and report back to his managers the status, and you learn from it. So that's what the guide does.
There you have it. And Oscar has asked the question saying, how does plant personnel know what are the standards required for a particular, for example, how often the holding tank, like glucose or canola oil tanks need to be cleaned. Those are the, standard operating procedures that, again, with SafetyChain are entered along with their frequency into the solution. So the person that needs to perform that task will get a notification that it needs to be performed. And if it isn't performed and that information isn't entered at the time it's supposed to be into the system, another alert will go out to the stakeholders. So that's a really great feature. I know that we've got quite a few additional questions, and unfortunately we're not going to be able to get to all of them. We do have your questions. If they were questions for SafetyChain, our representatives will get back to you very shortly with those answers. And if they're questions for Debbie, we'll make sure that they get to Debbie and she can get to you with a solution. So I would like to thank you so much, Debbie, again, for joining us. This is really, really very, very informative. Thank everybody for joining us and all the great questions. And you'll get, as we said, the slides and the recording within 24 hours, and you'll be able to request other information. So thank you, everybody, and have a great morning or afternoon, depending on where you are.